setup, we use the option record. We're recording all of our responses. And then the destination file. This is the name of the file that is our response file. You really can put it in any location. Now be aware that we're launching this from our database directory. That's the place where we extracted the zip file. Okay, so it launched this little window here, and then you're taken to the wizard. Make sure that your Oracle home is a value that you don't already have set. In other words, if your Oracle home is DB_1, make sure this is a different value. Okay, I'm going to make sure this says standard edition just so it doesn't take as long. And also make sure the global database name is different from your previous global database name, because that is the unique identifier. So remember, my domain was Johnson. And then I'll put in my passwords. And I'm not telling you what my passwords are. And if we wanted to, we could make this an advanced installation, but we'll just keep it basic. Okay, hit next. And this does take a moment. Beautiful. We're taken to this nice page. It tells us that we've passed the test, so we can continue on. And hit next. Now, when you get to the summary page, do not hit install. This is the part where I tell you not to hit the button and you go ahead and hit the button, right? No. Don't hit the install button. Hit cancel. Do I really want to exit? Of course I do. That's why I pushed the button. Now, let's see what's in our directory. Here we go. We've got basic.rsp. That is the response file that was created. We did not create a database yet. This file is what we're going to feed to our installer. Let's go ahead and run the silent installation. Make sure you're in your database directory. We have an executable called setup. We feed in the option of silent. We say response file and then the full path of that response file. Even if it's in the current directory, you must put that full path. Okay, so let's hit enter and we get a new window, and it will tell us here in a second where the log file is going to go. There we go. Okay, we can find it under program files, Oracle, inventory, and so on. So all this stuff will splash across the screen, and it looks like everything is passing. So far, so good. And this process might take up to 20 minutes. Really depends on how large your data files are. There's one more way of creating a database, and that's by Scratch. Now, if you're on Windows, the first thing you're going to have to do is create an Oracle service. The way we do that is with the oradim utility. You can launch this from any directory. Say oradim-new -sid, and then the SID name. Instance created. Great. Then you'll create an initialization file that has parameters for your database. You'll have to have a DB name, so our database name here is test. The instance name, this instance name will almost always be like the database name, unless of course you're in a clustered environment where you've got multiple instances tapping into one database. Then you specify one or more control files. These are used when the database is in the mount mode. We'll talk about the various modes of the database a little later. You also need to specify your background and user dump directories. These are used for trace files on the Oracle database level and also on the session level, individual level. Specify your DB max files, 1000, then some undo parameters. We'll talk about those in a later nugget. And then the shared pool size. I've specified this to be 75 megabytes. Shared pool is just used to store SQL statements. We want to go back to our prompt and launch SQL+. So SQL+ /as sysdba. We're logging on as the OS user. So the slash means we're not using a username and password. We're logging on rather as an authenticated user on the OS level. Okay, so connected to an idle instance means that we're connected to the database, but the database is down right now. Then we want to start the Oracle instance. The instance is just the collection of background processes and memory structures used to tap into a database. So when we say start up no mount, that simply means that we're starting the instance, but the database is not open. P file is the parameter file. We give the full path to where our parameter file is. Okay, so this is a good sign. All this stuff that came back means that we've got some memory structures in place. And I'm going to select status from $V instance, and it says that our database is started. Great. Okay, the next step, we're going to have a little script that creates our database. Okay, so this dash dash just means it's a comment. Here's our main script, create database test. Test is the name of our database that we specified in the initialization file. Max log files 32. Okay, we'll talk about what log files are later, but that's what the maximum number is. Max data files 500. Then we have a data file. You give the full path of where your system tablespace file is going to go. More on system tablespace later. We do need to specify the size, in this case 325 megabytes, and the reuse clause just means that if that file already exists on the OS level, go ahead and clobber it, overwrite it. Okay, so on 10G we have a new tablespace called sysox, so we have to specify the specifications for that too. Okay, the size and the location. Don't worry too much about the auto extend clause. You need to know more about the internals of the database before we get into those details. You do have to specify your character set, and then last you specify your log files. Log files are where all the changes to the database are going to be made. I made sure earlier that I launched SQL Plus from the same directory where that create script is sitting. Okay, so that way I don't have to specify the full path when I launch it. I can just say @create. And this might take a few seconds. And eventually you should get this database created. So great. Let's do a select status from $V instance again. See what the status is. Our database is open. Let's go ahead and wrap up this nugget. We did talk about our Oracle editions. Most likely you will be using either the Lite edition or Standard. Make sure you get that from Oracle's website. And then of course also look at the documentation for the installation prerequisites. We also discussed our Oracle Universal Installer. Use it as you like, either as a graphical tool or a command line tool. Same with your DBCA. It just depends on which way you like it, using wizards or through response files or manually. And of course we talked about our special considerations for Windows, Linux, and Unix. Remember in Windows the ORADIM utility, that's really important. If you don't use that, it will not work. And also for Linux and Unix, make sure that you create those Oracle users and O install groups like we talked about.